Greetings, cinephiles. I'm Bev Juday.
And I'm David Christensen.
And welcome to the Wild Rivers Film Radio, the official podcast of the Wild Rivers Film Festival on KCIW 100.7 FM. Today, we're sitting down with Vincent DiFrancesco, filmmaker, trail steward, and alum of the Siskiyou Mountain Club's Wilderness Corps. Vincent directed A Long Way to Nowhere and Bolan, two short documentaries that spotlight trail maintenance and the fire lookout restoration in some of Oregon's most rugged backcountry. I'd like to also do a sponsor shout-out before we get started. I'd like to thank Wild Rivers Film Festival's 2025 presenting sponsor, the Tolowa Dene Nation. Thank you for making the film festival and our summer film workshop possible this year. This year's Wild Rivers Film Festival is also brought to you, in part, by the Roundhouse Foundation, Travel Curry Coast, Sutter Coast Hospital, and the City of Brookings. If you're interested in being a sponsor for the Wild Rivers Film Festival and our mission to celebrate indie cinema, support film education, and build a film economy on the Wild Rivers coast, you can learn more on our website, wildriversfilmfestival.com. If this is the first that you're hearing about the Wild Rivers Film Festival, we're so glad you're joining us. The Wild Rivers Film Festival is a celebration of indie and local cinema that happens during the third week of every August in Brookings. Over the course of 4 days, we screen more than 40 films at 3 locations across the city. Many of our film screenings feature Q&A sessions from visiting filmmakers, and our festival includes daily educational panels, VIP parties, and a not-to-be-missed awards ceremony on the final day of the festival. Festival passes are currently on sale at wildriversfilmfestival.com, and we can't wait to see you at the show. If you're just joining us, you're listening to Wild Rivers Film Radio. I'm Bev Juday, and I'm here with
David Christensen.
And today we're sitting down with Vincent DiFrancesco. Vincent, welcome to the Wild Rivers Film Festival Radio.
Thanks for having me.
Let's begin, Vincent. You grew up loving the outdoors, and you've talked about your early experience with running and exploring trails. How did that connection with the land eventually lead you to filmmaking?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Midwest, specifically in Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, and I did quite a bit of running there because of my brother's suggestion. He was a cross-country athlete in high school, and he said, Vince, you should take up running. It really helps me relieve the stress of studying in school. And so I said, okay. And as I was taking up running, I started to explore some just local woods, around my home there in Cincinnati. And that led me to doing some ultra marathons in high school. And I went to Michigan and down to Tennessee and out to New Mexico and Colorado. I was really privileged to have those experiences where, on family vacations, I'd bring my running shoes and I would go exploring. And when I did those runs, it was all just kind of mountains and lakes and rivers and beautiful places to me. I didn't really connect that to, the fact that it was in a national forest or on Bureau of Land Management land, or in a state park or national park. I just thought of it as, I'm outdoors.
Right.
I didn't think of it as trails. I didn't consider that there had to be somebody out there building and maintaining those trails. I just thought of, the Appalachian Trail, it's here. It's always been here, and I'm running on it. I didn't.
Exactly.
I took that for granted. It wasn't until I was in college, my third year of college, that I found Siskiyou Mountain Club's Wilderness Conservation Corps just through a Google search. And I applied, and I told them, hey, I've been running trails and exploring the woods and the mountains for a while now, since I was a teenager, and I really want to give back and learn how to give back to these trails. And they said, all right, come on over to Southern Oregon and try your hand at this. And so that's what I did. In 2022, I became an intern with the Wilderness Conservation Corps program. And along with other young people, I spent about 3 months doing 8 days on, 4 days off, backpacking in these federally designated wilderness areas, using hand tools to restore and maintain these old trails that had been affected by fire and were therefore under-maintained. It was during that internship that I took a lot of photos. I brought along a camera with me because at that time I was in film school. And I was really into photography and cinematography. And so at the end of that summer, I created this photo essay, which was kind of my, the closest thing that I could do to creating a film is to combine words with images, you know. And that photo essay was published as a newsletter with Siskiyou Mountain Club. And Gabe, the executive director of the club, he said, "Hey, would you come back and make a film for us? We really liked your photographs and the text that you wrote for that photo essay." And I said, "Absolutely." And so I came back in 2023, and that was when I made the film A Long Way to Nowhere.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a long story long there for you.
But it's a really cool story.
Thanks.
And something you hopped over really quickly that I have to share with our audience out there is I watched your film and I saw the packs that you interns carry. Those things must weigh 100 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, they are quite heavy. And, you know, you'll see if you look up on YouTube, you know, if you just Google backpacking gear or something and you go to a YouTube video and there'll be people talking about ultralight backpacking gear. That kind of ultralight gear is really helpful for somebody who's trying to cover long distances, you know, really quickly. But for us, we needed very durable gear, and that meant heavier gear, you know. So that pack had to be able to withstand, you know, being thrown on the ground a bunch of times.
Wow.
and being, you know, kind of pulled through thick brush and stuff like that. And so, you know, yes, hiking gear has evolved over the years to become a lot more lightweight, but we couldn't quite go in that direction. We had to carry the heavier, more durable gear. We also had to carry a lot of water and a lot of food because we were out there for a significant amount of time. And so, yeah, those packs do get up there in weight. I would guess maybe closer to 60 to 80 pounds. There may have been some packs out there that were 100 pounds, but I myself, you know, when I was an intern, I tried to keep it as light as I could, although it was still quite heavy. Yeah.
Did you know that going in when you decided I'm going to go do this?
Yeah, we went through an interview process. I did 2 interviews myself, and they explained all of that to us.
How rugged it was.
Right, multiple times they said, you know, you understand what you're getting yourself into, right? You know, they really pushed that point home, you know, being on the other side of it now as a staff member, I know that, you know, there are a lot of people that are weeded out in that interview process who, you know, when we tell them exactly what it is to be in this internship, some people say, "Oh, you know, that's not for me," and that's totally fine, you know, but that's a necessary part of the process for sure.
It's incredible, just watching how they hiked all day long, and when they weren't hiking, they were working, like manual, heavy-duty labor. Mm-hmm. A few of the days that looked like they were having fun and jumping in the rivers or the lakes that looked similar to lakes, those looked freezing.
Well, it does get quite warm out there in the Kalmiopsis, not only because it's the summertime, but also because there's a lack of shade. Right? Mm-hmm. When you have those fire-damaged areas, there's no tree canopy, and so you don't have that shade, that cooling shade that typically you'd have somewhere where there is still big timber. You know, if you go out to the Cascades, you know, where there's a lot of tree cover, right? And so it gets really hot, and so that freezing cold water at the end of the day, that's welcome.
Feels good
from the interns for sure. Yeah.
Well, and it looked like there was a lot of bonding that went on too.
Absolutely.
Terrific.
Absolutely.
So transitioning from that into actually holding the camera, did you find that was difficult to balance the two, or was it just natural?
So when I was filming, I wasn't involved in the work itself.
Okay.
That would have been incredibly difficult to balance. Yeah. But I was still, having to feed myself and filter water and carry my pack. And that was definitely difficult from other films that I'd produced, where you're just filming and you drive to you drive to your production area and you just film and then you go home at the end of the day. Whereas when I was doing this work for Siskiyou Mountain Club, it was I was filming all day, and I was also having to take care of myself at the same time in a very fundamental, like survival kind of way, right? And it took some getting used to, but after a while, I got used to it, and it became second nature. Yeah.
And some of the shots that you took, not only are they candid, but they were incredible, beautiful, super insightful. Did it take you a long time to master that, or was that something that came naturally to you?
It was sometimes difficult at the end of a long day of hiking to keep the camera steady, just because my body was so tired, and holding a heavy camera. But in terms of those scenic shots, the Kalmiopsis or any of the wilderness areas we're in, they just offer such incredible beauty. It's almost like I just point my camera and there it is.
And go. It's magic.
Yeah, it really is.
That's great.
Vincent, your film A Long Way to Nowhere follows a crew working to reopen a historic trail through the Kalmiopsis wilderness, a place shaped by fire and time. What drew you to tell this particular story?
So I had filmed the interns all summer in 2023. And so I had a lot of footage. I think I had 60 plus hours of footage of them. It wasn't until the fall, so after they'd all gone home, that I sat down and with their executive director, Gabe Howe, and looked at the footage and kind of decided what we're going to do with it, because no film is 60 hours long, right? And so we had to kind of find a moment in the summer that we could showcase. And this route, the Trans-Kalmiopsis route, was the original route that the club focused on with its original group of volunteers. And so we thought, what better way to introduce Siskiyou Mountain Club than to talk about that original route, and also show where it is today and kind of that legacy. How you have Gabe and Jill who worked on that route 15 years ago, and now these young people who are continuing that work and keeping that trail open.
That's incredible. And it was really clear from watching, especially A Long Way to Nowhere, that this is more than just trail clearing, that it was about stewardship, resilience, of course, and maybe even hope. What were some of the toughest moments you and the crew faced during filming?
Yeah, I mean, weather is a big one. I mentioned the heat, and in the summertime, especially in the Kalmiopsis, but in a lot of the areas that we work, the heat can be really brutal. And I'm surprised that I haven't had my camera, shut down on me at any time. It has a little fan built into it, and I hear that fan whirring, really loudly sometimes when it gets hot. But that heat is really difficult. The hiking can also be really difficult, especially when you're carrying that much weight. But at the end of the day, it really is that sense of camaraderie that gets us through those moments. If I were out there alone, I'm not sure I'd be able to get through those really tough moments. And I have gone out alone into some of those wilderness areas, and it doesn't quite feel the same, because you really do depend on that team mentality to get through when things get tough.
I can imagine that bonding is so tight that you'd want to do more together.
Yeah.
Other opportunities, other filming.
And it's astonishing how quickly it happens too. I mean, when the interns, when they're coming in fresh, for example, just this year, 1 month ago, we welcomed our first crew this year. And, it's just incredible to see them from day one, super awkward. They don't really know each other. They're coming from all different parts of the country. And then by the end of that first 7-8 day hitch, they're almost best friends.
Exactly.
Because they spent every moment of every day together doing really hard things, and that inevitably is gonna make you really close. Yeah.
You bet.
Now, do the interns maintain any type of friendship after this experience?
They do. I haven't tracked the statistics there or anything, but I do know that one of our staff members, her name is Tiffany. I believe she was an intern in 2021, the year before I was an intern. I think she and her crew, they still keep in touch pretty well. I think a couple of years ago they had a little reunion where they all met up, and
Excellent.
yeah, definitely some of those connections definitely are kept.
Okay, can we shift over to Bolan and talk about that for a moment?
Absolutely.
Well, sure. Okay, this film shifts focus to a community rebuilding a fire lookout that was lost to wildfire. What do you think that lookout represents, especially in this era of climate change and increasingly intense wildfires?
Yeah, I mean, for those who haven't seen the film and are listening, the film features Scott Blower, who's the district ranger there in that area of the Forest Service. And that lookout was really important to him personally and to his family. And his experience and his story reflects what is probably true for a lot of people in that community, right, where they had a connection to that fire lookout. When the Slater fire swept through that region along the Oregon-California border, it was devastating, and people lost their homes, and it was just devastating. And obviously, the fire lookout wasn't the first priority there, right? But having a structure like that rebuilt and having the community come together to rebuild something like that is symbolic of the greater resilience of that community to rebuild after an event like that. And I'm not an expert in fire science or anything like that. I'm sure there are people who could speak to the exact conditions of why that fire was as big as it was, and why those winds were as violent as they were. But the bottom line is that that fire happened, and it made a huge impact on the community, but they rebounded, and they showed how strong they were in the wake of that. Yeah.
I thought it was an incredible building, and the work that they did to bring it back to life and make it exist again was really thought-provoking. Because I heard you say earlier that if people don't experience these wild places, they won't care for them. And if they don't care, then these places are vulnerable to exploitation. And I think that was a really good example. Not that the fire was exploitation, but just that if it didn't get rebuilt, people wouldn't care.
Right.
And the money would go elsewhere. And an incredible beauty was lost. So based on that, what role do you think that your film plays in helping people build that connection? Because not all of us can go out there and hike around like that.
Yeah. Well, I think films like these that showcase those places, as well as the film about the Wilderness Corps, it allows people to experience a place that they may not be able to go, or it could inspire them to go visit that place. Obviously, some of these hikes are very adventurous. They may not be for everybody, but you can still admire that kind of from afar. What it also provides, I think, is a window into the experience of those volunteers and the Wilderness Corps, right? Where they might go home to their family and say, "Hey, I did this really cool thing," and their family members, their friends might applaud them for that. They might appreciate it, but they might not know really what that experience was like. And with the film, they can watch that film and say, "Oh, it feels as though I was there, doing that work alongside you, as though I was there alongside you." And so, yeah, I think ultimately the films, I hope, inspire people to either begin that connection with the land or to rekindle that connection. Yeah.
I think that you accomplished that goal.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Vincent, for listeners who are inspired by your films, what's one thing they can do to support public lands or get involved?
Well, on the Siskiyou Mountain Club side of things, you can donate to us on our website at siskiyoumountainClub.org. But if you're not able to give financially, you can give your time, and you can be a volunteer with us. As I mentioned, volunteers is really what got our organization started back in 2010, restoring that single route across the Kalmiopsis wilderness area. And we still have that volunteer program running today. And we have trips that are as easy as a single day, with very little hiking, doing just a couple hours of work and then going back into town. And we have trips that are as difficult as, backpacking for 5 days and hiking 5 miles a day and doing work and pulling crosscut saws. And, so we have opportunities for everybody. And we hope that you feel inspired to get out and contribute to the maintenance of those trails.
Definitely. Are there opportunities for families, maybe young growing families, to kind of work as a team and get out there?
Yeah, that's something I haven't considered before. People are, of course, welcome to bring along their kids on these volunteer trips, and people have. I think it's a great thing for a great example to set that you are completing this kind of service, especially because some of these areas are really difficult to get to, and it shows a commitment when you show up and you make that journey and you do that work. And so bringing your kids along can be great. Of course, consider that these are remote places and there might not be facilities and
Yes.
such. So yeah. Some opportunities might be great to bring along your kids. Some might not.
So is there anything like, I can't imagine what it would be called, but sort of like back to school, where people could go to get more information, maybe in a group setting? Maybe they could even watch film clips to see what would be expected.
In terms of the volunteer program?
Yes.
Yeah. If you go to our YouTube channel or our website, and our YouTube channel is linked there, siskiyoumountainclub.org, we have a couple of videos out there that essentially show what our volunteers do. One of them is our film called National Forest Now, which showcases some volunteer work on the Osgood Ditch Trail. The other is a little video that we put out about some work on the Union Creek, at the Union Creek campground, near the Upper Rogue River Trail. So those are some videos that might be good to watch, just to see, the kind of work and what we do out there. The other great thing to do is send a message to our volunteer program manager, Trevor. His email is trevor@siskiyoumountainclub.org. He's great, and he'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about the volunteer program. He's always looking for new people to get out there, no matter your skill level. He'd be happy to answer any questions and help you out.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite volunteer opportunity?
Gosh, that's hard to answer. It really depends on how strenuous you want it to be,
Yes.
I joined our volunteers this year on our annual Memorial Day trip. And that follows that same 26-mile route across the Kalmiopsis.
Wow.
That one was really difficult, and there were some moments that were really, really hard. But the places that we got to go, the lakes and the rivers that we swam in, was so rewarding, But then also it's great to just say, I'll go out on a Saturday just for the day and help out. For example, like I mentioned at the Union Creek campground, and it's not such a commitment, right?
Right.
So it honestly depends on what you're looking for, and how much time you want to commit. But I think on either side of the spectrum, it can still be incredibly rewarding.
That's great. Is there a time of year that's better than any other?
In the winter, we do some trips, especially in low elevation areas, and those can sometimes be a little wet, but they're still worth it. But if you want a drier experience, look for summer and fall trips as well. The cool thing about some of our summer trips is that we have some opportunities to assist our Wilderness Conservation Corps. So sometimes our volunteers will go in, carry some supplies for them, maybe do some work along a trail that's closer to the trailhead to facilitate that crew getting into the more remote location. So yeah, it really depends on what you're looking for. But I would say that our largest crews, if you're looking for that sense of like bigger community, our larger crews are definitely in the summer and fall.
That's so cool. So, Vincent, thank you so much for joining us. I've certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience has as well. If you're just joining us, you're listening to Wild Rivers Film Radio. I'm Bev Juday, here with
David Christensen.
That's it for this episode of Wild Rivers Film Radio. If you want to learn more about the festival, buy passes, or volunteer with us, or if you wanted to sign up for a sponsorship, you can learn more and get connected at wildriversfilmfestival.com. You can also find the festival on Facebook and Instagram. In closing, this recording was done by Michael Gorse. Sound mixing and editing was done by Tom Bozak. And our producer is Sue Wright. Today's guest was Vincent DiFrancesco. And I'm Bev Juday with
David Christensen.
Until next time, thank you all very much.